The dream came to her as she was in the water. She was in the water. I'm going to set kind of a tone, I guess, for this one. She was 6, as she would later say, in the Pacific Ocean, actually, at the foothills of these really, really tall cliffs, rippled sandstone. They would kind of shimmer in the summer light. They were at Point Loma, at the mouth of San Diego Bay. Her parents were watching. They were probably laying out on some beach blankets, watching her bob up and down, as parents do. To themselves, they were thinking, man, look at how she takes to the water. Like our girl's like a mermaid in the water. It's like a harbor seal. It's amazing. They didn't have much as far as money goes. The dad was a cop. Mom kept the home. There wasn't they didn't have a lot of material items, but what they did have, and they had the ocean. They had the sea right next to them, and that was enough for Florence. She spent her childhood in the water at the edge of America, swimming the channel where conquistadors had sailed 400 years before, where the Pacific Fleet had to pass that way, going to Wake Island and Midway and all other canals that were about to be built in that particular spot. Florence Chadwick was her name. She learned to swim, to read the currents, to feel the rhythm of the waves, to keep her hips up, to reach out as far as she could and take her next breath. Right on, breathe, left arm, and on, and onward and onward. She was 10 when she first swam all the way across the mouth of the bay. And the dream that had come to her when she was, a couple years before that in the water, the dream that she had now known for more than half of her life, it may have just started to look like she'd be able to do it. 2 years earlier, another American woman, Gertrude Ederlein, I believe is how I say it, she was just 19 years old herself, and she did it. She had become the very first woman and only the 6th person to swim the total distance between England and France, or from France to England. It seemed like an impossible feat until this band of crazy, crazy hard ocean, it was breached. Like this had once kept barbarians at bay. Okay? This had once fought off Napoleon's naval forces. The Spanish Armada, it kept that at bay. First man to do it was in 1875. I couldn't find his name, but I'm sure that he had a wicked, wicked cool mustache based on that area in that time period. And in 1926, a young New Yorker, faster than any of the 5 men that had swam it before then, she finished. And that was young 19-year-old Ederlein. That's where we can stop for just a second. Because we have a young girl who is wondering if she'll ever be able to do it. And then she has someone that goes before her. And she does it. Not only just swam, but another woman went up to swim. Not only just any swim, but the exact place that this young girl had set a goal out whenever she was very first born. And that's where I'm going to ask you guys to take out your texts. If you have your Bibles, turn them to Hebrews chapter 12. Somebody with a loud voice would like to just stand up and read that. Loud voice, huh? See, you got a loud voice. James, do you have it pulled up? Not yet. Just 1 through 3. Yeah, someone read some scripture.
Therefore, Since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinful men, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Students, this is the last quiz question I'll ask you, I promise. Whenever we see a therefore in Scripture, what do we ask?
What is it there for?
We got to ask, what's it there for? The chapter right before this, chapter 11 of Hebrews, the way that Steve gets pumped up talking about baseball, that's the way that Christians get pumped up reading Hebrews chapter 11. It is it's the best of the best. It's the Hall of Faith, as they call it. I imagine walking through the temple in Kung Fu Panda for obvious reasons. But as the two characters are walking through, they're like, oh man, that's the thing, and it's so cool, and go over, oh, there's Master. And so they're just going through kind of like a museum and seeing all the most important things to them, like to where they're at, to their current Kung Fu fighting. Like all these people that they're walking through this temple and looking at all their gear. That's what that brings to mind. All right, so it's a lovely, lovely chapter. We've been going through the entire book of Hebrews, and it just so happens that I timed it perfectly and planned it to where I'd be preaching Hebrews 12 today. You guys know me. You know I'm lying about that. I didn't plan it. Come on. Anyway, moving on. It's the Hall of Faith. Rather than go through and hit you with all of it, Hebrews 11, the first three verses in Hebrews 11. By faith we understand. 11:4-7. Faith at the dawn of history. Faithful Abraham is the next one. The heavenly hope is another idea through there. The faith of the patriarchs. The faith of Moses. By faith they overcame. Even without knowing the names, even without having those names read, you know that their faith overcame. And so that is what the author wants to purvey. He wants to say, because you have this huge cloud of witnesses that are surrounding you, like run that race that's marked out for you. Like you're able to do that because look to them, they've done it. And within the context of the Bible, what it's saying is, like they are right there, like they've gone before you, and they didn't even have Jesus yet. This is Old Testament Hall of Faith. Like these are pre-Jesus incarnation. Like they're back before that happened, and they could still live these amazing lives. It says things talking about how Isaiah was put to death at the sword, talking about how Noah, he built the boat. He didn't know what rain was, and he built a boat for God. Like that's that kind of faith. Just it knocks my socks off. Like it is amazing kind of faith. And they're saying that they didn't even have the main part of God to us. They didn't even have that thing that would connect us to God. They didn't have Christ yet they're still able to do these amazing things like Moses. Like Moses, he had this nice, penthouse apartment. He was basically a prince. He was living the high life. And he decided, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to be a slave. And so he tossed all that away. And then he went and hung out in the desert for 40 years, just wandering around. Like if you're a leader of a people in the desert for 40 years, you are getting questioned all the time. You're having to appoint all these committees to do this. I'm sure since they were all Baptists in the Old Testament, they probably had to have the manna committee that would always be over here to gather all the manna together. And then we also had, the quail that came for a little bit. And then we had to have some way to entertain the kids. So we had, play area over here. We had VBS. Well, I guess just desert Bible school over here. But there were people who the leader had to help lead these people. Man, it's got to be stressful for Moses. And he gave up this nice, cruise job. The heroes in that faith are, they're the best of the best. If you're a Jewish person, and you hear these names, it's like listening to Steve say, "Hey Steve, tell me about your favorite 5 players." Like the passion that Steve would have, because these are for the Jewish people. Like these are their heroes. They're like they would have these trading cards. They'd have the Abraham trading cards. And so that's why he says, "Therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses." Sorry, my phone locked out. I didn't have a verse pulled up. That is no good. Says, "A great cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and the sin that clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the faith or the race that has been set before us." You know, I've gone back and forth about what I was going to talk about right this section. I was a little bit nervous because this is for the graduates, of course, but then I also wanted to encourage everybody. So let's do this. What if you are only able to, your favorite type of praise and worship is electric guitars, and that's where you are closest to God when you're worshiping? Is that a sin? No, it's not a sin. What if your favorite way to worship is with banjos and with steel guitars and up here? Which I'd probably say that our favorite way to worship is like that. Definitely didn't expect it, but definitely love it. But is that the only way that you can do things? How about this? What if your devotion to your company is perfectly fine? That they feed your family, they give you protection, give you insurance. But what if that begins to hinder? Is that still something? The interesting thing that the author talks about here, he says every weight and sin. So he distinguishes this weight from the sin. Okay? Trust me, you guys are much more experienced in this subject and much more learned. So I don't have to explain what sin is to you guys. I don't have to go through and ask, okay, give me a list of your sins, because that's super awkward. But I wouldn't do that. Sufficient to say we do know what doing bad is, but do we know what doing good is to the point of it being bad? You guys following me? Maybe it's with golf. There's nothing sinful about golf, but man, if you start obsessing over golf, if it starts coming between you and the Lord, it's outweighed. The word that the author uses is actually, it's more for like drag. So in one instance, it's using about like the way somebody's elbows work. And so it's, imagine someone trying to run and having very large elbow skins. And it's just, it's drag from where, as opposed to being aerodynamic, something drags you down. Any boating experts in here? Anybody, yeah? Yeah, okay, oh, I see you. How easy is it to drive a boat when there's an anchor weighing you down, right? Yeah, usually pull that anchor up. Or we have a bunch of pilots too, right? What if you don't have 2 wings, right? Still, you don't fly nearly as well, right? You need that drag to be able to fly, okay? Right? Okay. Well, here's the deal. Anything that drags you down can be sinful. Man, there's some people in here whose political beliefs, man, they are not in line with the church. And instead of changing things up, or instead of going to the scriptures, they want to be angry at, everybody. And they throw lots of riots, and there's people that get upset because those are political views. There's other people in here whose political are much more conservative and much more friendly, much nicer, wholesome views. All right? Going too far in one direction, that's when things turn bad. You can absolutely love your country more than you can love your Lord, and it's sad when it happens. Moving on. He says, throw that aside. He says, toss it away. Like, throw it away. What he doesn't say is, you should really seek some prayer and guidance. And then get with somebody else and say, hey, should I take this sin away? And, well, I don't know. Should you give it 90% to throw that away? No, it says throw it away. That means it's possible to do so. Like whatever in your life, and I know that you're thinking of it in your head right now. Like you're thinking that one specific thing that I'm talking about. I know that you guys are. Man, if that's what came to mind, that's what needs to go. It just happens, right? So because we were surrounded by such a great cloud of witness, it allows us to surrender. Surrender that thing. For me, it was video games. When I had first got married, I also first started playing this one particular video game. Super fun, wasn't bloody, nothing like that. But it was a game, and it was everything tailored to me. It's as if they like hacked my brain and built a video game, so I love it. And it's it wasn't like I said, it wasn't a bad game. What it did take away was from my new wife. And then for a little bit, whenever Holden was first born, it took away from time I'd be spending with him. And so I took this game that I'd been spending, hundreds of hours playing. And it wasn't a sinful game, but man, it was weighing me down. I wouldn't be able to be closer to Jesus because of that game. It was weighing me down, so I had to toss it aside. Sometimes our plans are what cause us to not be able to run this race as fast as possible. We'll go back. Young Florence, if you'll remember, she had just heard about Ederlein crossing. See, there's an item in the local paper, Clovis, Clovis, California. It's a little cow town in the Central Valley, about 6 hours in a world away from San Diego. It's the summer of '31. There's a photo of Florence in a black bathing suit. She has one of those head bobbed hair, so it's more hydrodynamic. That's what they call it. She's awkward. She's adolescent. She kind of has like one of those like kind of grinny, like I'm maybe in trouble, like please get that camera out of my face kind of smile. You guys know the one I'm talking about? She hugs her knees to her chest, and the caption reads, Olympic prospect. She was 12 years old at the time. She had already won all these very prestigious races in the open ocean against adults, against men. And she began training the pole for the Olympics of '32. She didn't make the team, not at all. Or the Berlin Olympics 4 years later, because what she was good at, what she was really good at, they didn't have an Olympic sport for her. But Florence got used to the view from the lower podiums, not finishing first, barely missing the cut. So, since she really, really loved what she did, but there was no money in what she did, she went to college and she became a secretary. She was a typist. She took a job in Saudi Arabia at an oil company, because that's where her company transferred to. So moved all the way over to the Middle East and started typing. That's what she do all during the day. But you know what she did during the morning? What she did at nighttime? Oh man, she swam. Every chance she got, she was swimming in that water. And people just kind of made it to a joke, like, oh yeah, you're going to swim the English Channel someday, huh? Well, go for it. Go for it. It's just the way that she came to know herself, the way that she came to know her own body, the rise and the fall of the waves around her, to be able to withstand cold and just to push through it into darkness, to go for hours and hours and hours, and onward and onward and onward. The skills don't amount to much in the 50-meter backstroke, right? There's a race every year back home. She had won it 3 times in a row. They asked her to stop coming to it, actually. But she still had that dream. She went to college, like I had said, moved away, but she still had that dream. Even through college, still had that dream. Moved to Saudi Arabia, still had that dream. And in 1950, a British paper put some money up to anyone that could swim that channel. It had been 16 years since anybody had done it. And so this tabloid, trying to get a little bit extra press, get some excitement going around about it. She wasn't famous enough though, so they said, no, you can't come swim here. She had been training her entire life to swim that, and there was that. They finally let people do it again, and they're like, nah, you're not famous enough. You're just a typist. So she threw off everything else that would hinder her. She said, I'm going to take this money I've earned working in the Middle East. I'm going to pay for my own plane. I'm going to pay for my own crew. I'm going to pay for my own boat, and I'm going to get there. Because that's what I was made to do. I was made to swim. All these roadblocks, all these hindrances in her life. You know, lots of people say, oh, that must mean the Lord to not, wanting me to go do that. No. He's wanting you to go do that. And you have to throw off anything that's going to keep you from being there. Anything. So she did. On August 8th, in 1950, it was 2:30 in the morning. She stepped along the rocks at the edge of the land. She slipped into the cold waves. She went to work, hips up, reaching out as far as she could, rising and falling without water. She had always been speaking that same language of the ocean for as long as she could remember. Language was right on, breathe, left on. Right on, breathe, left on. And on, and on, and onward, and onward, and
Wish he would
onward.
have had little Steve on the thing on his head.
Florence Chadwick, a 35-year-old typist in California, completed her channel strip. She set up a new whip record for 13 hours and 23 minutes. Mocked by spectators in the cliffs between Dover and Deal, she finished in great style after a very rough effort in heat. Well tried. Was that?
Buffering.
Well, hey, if you couldn't tell, which you probably couldn't, that was a video of her actually making it. And them saying, hey, this is Florence Chadwick. You can tell they're extremely British because they say, she did a very good job indeed. She just like blown away every single crossing record possible. And they're like, oh, well, good show. It's different cultures, different thing. And she had just won that race that she had been dreaming for her entire life. She had always been looking to that race. And afterwards, there's this boat ride. Because obviously, if you're on the other side of the lake in a different country, you may not want to swim back, which she did, by the way. A couple years later, she was the first woman to swim there and back in one go. Amazing, amazing feat. But there's this boat ride that they would take you from France, where you landed, and the boat would bring you back across, the 22 miles of freezing water that you had just crossed. And I want you guys, if you could just meet me on that boat. Okay? Just think about it. You had just achieved everything that you had always been working for. Like through all these hardships, from people looking at you and saying, no, you're not good enough to swim with us. Get out of here. You don't have enough money. To the times when you're like, oh, man, I am so good at this. I can't earn a dime doing it. And all the times where she would go, and all those mornings, freezing cold mornings in the ocean, and she'd go out there. She'd wake up early, and she would still swim. And she always had her eyes fixed on France. Even when she was in San Diego, even when she was in Saudi Arabia, she still had her eyes fixed on France, the place that she had not yet seen. But that's where her goal was. That's where she drew her strength. Listen, the Christian walk, we all know that it's not going to be challenging, but what happens when it isn't challenging? Like, we can talk about it in theory, but what happens when it really, really gets you? One of my favorite verses from Ezekiel says that the Lord is talking. He says, you know what, Ezekiel, I need you to go and talk to them about me. Talk to the Jewish people about me. However, they're not going to listen because they are silly. But I want you to go there and still speak. It says, I want your face to become like flint Like, I want you to be engaging them with as much passion as they're going to be disrespecting you. And so we're talking to a man of God, to a preacher, saying they're not going to listen to you. I mean, we already knew that. But to say, hey, I want you to go there. And even if they don't listen, I want you to preach so much that you become like flint, like unmoving, like something that is ingrained, it's been now built into you, that you are just going to preach no matter what. Of course, the end of this passage, we know, it kind of curls up, and it goes to the author and perfecter of our faith. And this will be the last thing that we talk about. It says, consider him who endured so much from sinners, such hostility against himself, so that we may not grow weary or faint-hearted. Man, who is weary this morning? Anybody? There's a whole row of people up here in the front that I know are weary. Like they are worn out. Like they're coming to the end of a very, very tough time, very, very tough week, worn out. But listen, if you were to ask me, Evan, like, what in the world am I supposed to take away from this sermon? Well, first, because we're surrounded, we're able to surrender. But no matter what, we have to look to Jesus to be sustained. Okay? You can be the best swimmer in the world, but if you don't have your eyes fixed on the prize somewhere, man, you can wander off. If you don't have your just kind of a compass aimed at exactly where you want to be spiritually, doesn't matter if you're a fry cook or the guy that develops rocket fuel. Like, it doesn't matter. If your heart is not aimed towards God, then you're lost. So this is what I'm going to ask you guys to do. Instead of having an invitation, we're going to have some of the youth just come up. Well, yes, the graduates come up. And then we're also going to ask the deacons, if you guys would also join us up here. And we're just going to have a laying on of hands while Dave comes up and strums the guitar for you there. But listen, this is where I'd like for you guys to be in a mindset. There's this scene at the very end of Florence's life where she was teaching swimming at a university. She was helping a university student that she thought, and the student thought, that they could cross that ocean, cross that strait. And so we had Florence, who once swam that thing like 19 times. Now she's on the outside of the boat. Okay? Now she's on the inside of the boat, and she's doing exactly what her coach did to her. You know, you can do right arm, breathe, left arm. Feeding her sugar cubes, saying, come on, you can do it. Listen, there's always a time in our lives when we have to pass what we know on to somebody else. Because Christianity isn't meant to hang out and be shut up. Like, Christianity is meant, like, by definition, it is self-expanding. And so ones that were teachers before, they pass that on. And then those students become teachers. Again, they pass that on. So please, if I were to have a prayer for you guys, man, take what you've learned here, take what you've learned in Bible school lessons, in Steve's sermons, like listening to this great cloud of witness around you, right? And take that and just pass that on. And if you ever wonder how you can make it, how you're going to get by still in a world that's crazy, I'll tell you. Right arm breathe and left arm. Right arm breathe and left arm. Right arm breathe and left arm. On and on. And onward and onward and on.